I wanted to just tell my story of why I became a mixed martial artist. A lot of young men, well, let me go back to the beginning. I think it's more important. When I was when I was a child, I was small, right? I'm not a big guy. Even now, I'm not a big guy. Um, for reasons outside of my control, my pituitary gland didn't secrete the correct amount of human growth hormone during puberty, and I wasn't allowed to grow to my potential. I'm 5'7", 170 pounds, and I have a mesomorph body type, if you know what that is. I'm able to get bigger, smaller, pretty easy. Um, Good endurance athlete, things like that. But I was small. I was a small kid, and a new kid a lot of times because of my dad's job. I had to move to many different uh, towns, and I went to 14 different grammar schools, if that kind of gives you an idea. Well, what happened is, I was young, I was small, I had freckles, I had like the cutest freckles right here. I wish I had them as an adult. Um, I had freckles, I had buck teeth, and I was small. I also had ADHD. I have ADHD, right? Which, when I was a child, made it hard to learn. Uh, you know, so there was a lot of good material to pick on me about. I know that children are children and they don't understand when they're being mean, and I get that, and I forgive all of them. I mean, they were just kids, to be honest. They were just children. I understand that. But it still came with a lot of pain. So when I was young, my parents put me in Taekwondo. All right. And Taekwondo really did, it was short. It wasn't super long, but it really did help with, giving me a little bit of confidence. I mean, breaking those boards seems silly. I mean, those boards are meant to break. I mean, that's kind of what they are. They're not meant for you to actually bash your hand or your foot over a piece of wood, especially for a child. That's silly. What they are is they're actually kind of pre-broke, but we don't tell the kids that. We'll keep that between us. It gives young children confidence. It gives them a sense of power, like they have some power. And if you are someone who's been abused, picked on or whatever, or even abused, I would imagine. I was never abused, but I was abused by bullying, but not like at home or anything like that. I imagine it gives you a sense of worth or some power, right? At least I know it did for me. And I was just really little guy. I think I was like 8, 9, 9 o'clock, 9 years old. Well, going through adolescence, I was told my dad, like, I really don't want to move anymore, Dad, please stop, and we finally got to the grammar school that I wound up actually graduating from. And there were some kids that would bully me and pick on me, and I was like the class clown. I was a class clown because I couldn't pay attention. I wanted to get better grades. I just couldn't. People would be like, "Hey, why did you do so good on this test or this class, but you can't do it on that one?" Well, yeah, ADHD. Like, it didn't interest me. This sucks. If I could have got up and walked and paced, I would have been fine. But in them days, it's just not how it works. So it is what it is. I mean, I take it with a grain of salt. Grain of salt. And I got picked on. I brought a lot of attention to myself. And really, honestly, all I really wanted was for people like me, or, kids like me, right? I just wanted that. So I decided I was going to try out for football. And they're like, "No way, Jack. You're too small. You're going to get hurt, this and that, blah, blah, blah," right? Well, the first year I played football, I won the Dick Butkus Trophy. And I don't think it was because I was like the best defenseman, though I did pretty good. It was because of my heart. And that's what was identified, because I had such a drive to prove that I wasn't too small. I wasn't less than. I wasn't below everybody else just because I was a little shorter. I mean, technically, I guess I was. But my worth wasn't less. And I went out for football and I took a lot of abuse. These kids would be like, "Oh, I'm going to smash you, you little blah, blah, blah," right? And they caught me on video punching kids through their face masks. They caught me on video stepping on kids' hands with my cleats. The parents that would video the games back when we had the big old video cameras. That I took a lot of crap. I did. I really did. And then I got older and I went into high school and I was wrestling for a while and I got in some trouble wrestling. Then I boxed for a little bit and then I went to Kempo. All right, so I always found my way back to martial arts. And I took that for a while when the UFC first started out, but I don't know. I just didn't have much of like a support or whatever. And so life went on, right? I went on through life. I started a trucking company in my 20s. I had a child with a woman. You know, we were engaged. We had a house together. And, all that came to about an end about when I was 29 years old. And I don't, how much do you divulge, right? So, I realized I wasn't going to marry her. I just wasn't going to. All we did was fight. We just, matches and gasoline. And I felt it was better that we weren't together for our son's sake than together because he would have to grow up watching his mom, and his father power struggle constantly, because at the end of the day, that's what it really was about. Well, we separated, and I had a serious distrust for her. Like none. And I was working out and I got all jacked and big old shoulders and arms. My arms were all really nice. I was real tan, and I was doing some stuff I shouldn't have been doing. And not like drugs or anything like that, but I was womanizing and hanging out and places where, or environments where maybe women weren't holding themselves to the highest standard. I'm not talking about strip joints either. I'm just talking about social areas or social events. And one day my mom came over to snoop on me, obviously. Was cleaning my house and found stuff that women had left behind and piled it up on my kitchen table. And said I always wanted to clean a brothel. When you got a mom from the South, that stuff doesn't fly, okay? That's just not cool. And you just know you screwed up because, you have you were raised to respect your mother, and that's just women. In general, I mean, like, my mom don't pull out her own chair. She doesn't open her own door, even at 85 years old. Like, she'll just walk up, fold her arms, and look at the door, because a man's gonna open that door for her, and she ain't touching it, and that's fine. I'm cool with it. It's never been hard to look like a gentleman because those things were ingrained in me. Well, anyways, so I was working out at this gym, get my pump on, get my swole on, and some young dude was just acting like an idiot, like all buffaloed out with his chest, walking around like total jag. And him and I got into it, and I grabbed a 5-pound weight and went after him. And it was broke up from the guys that I worked out with. They're like, "Holy cow, man, you gotta chill." And they said, "Hey, there's this mixed martial arts seminar that's gonna be here. You gotta sign up to it because you got some anger issues, man." So I went and I looked and I signed. I believe I was like the first person to sign too. Well, I wound up taking the seminar, right? And it was interesting. It was something I always wanted to do, right? It was great that it found me again, or was put right in my path, because it's something I always wanted to do. It's just, my ex wouldn't have supported me training and things like that. So it was there. It was the opportunity. And with that thing that happened with my mom that I explained, I felt like I had to start anew, right? Start a new life. I had to reinvent myself. And I heard that topic or that expression before about reinventing yourself. And that was kind of the state of mind I was in at the time. There was also a couple other things that had happened. One of the things that had happened to me was when I went through that separation, I had that trucking company, I had lost everything. It's partially her hand in it, because she ran my office, and and I was so dependent on her, helping me too. I couldn't find anything. And then also just going through a separation. I mean, it's just awful. I mean, it's rough. I don't wish it on anybody, not knowing where your child is going to bed, if they're safe, who's around your child. I mean, at that point, I really didn't trust her. And unfortunately, this, the idea is like the child goes with the mom, which was ridiculous. Another topic for another day. No, anyways, so I was losing everything, and I never really drank by myself, alcohol. I was drinking by myself one day in my kitchen. I was really contemplating suicide. And I was sitting there. Oh my God, I don't believe I'm telling this story. I was sitting there with a loaded Glock, thinking about why I shouldn't be around, what damage and shame I brought to my family, how I wasn't worthy of being a father, how I was a bad example. And this, I was self-pitying, I had a little pity party going on for myself there. And that was what I was doing. I was seriously thinking about just picking up the gun and just doing myself, just getting over with, just put everyone out of their misery, right? So then get on with their lives, and I didn't have to, they didn't have to worry about me no more. Well, while that was going on and I was in real deep thought, I heard a backup alarm, crescendoing up the driveway, right? Well, it happened to be a repo man coming for my BMW. And this is where I say, if Satan was ever trying to grab my soul, it was at that time. You could believe in Satan or not, I don't give a crap, right? For me, that's how I look at it. If there was ever a time to push me over the edge, I never thought about suicide really like that before or after. Like, why would the timing be so right? You know what I mean? So wrong, but so right. Well, the guy, rings the doorbell. I open the door. Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, I know why you're here. I'm like, look, dude, let me clean out the car. I'll give you the keys. So you don't have to just take it without the keys. I'll give you the keys because it's worth more if you give him the keys, right? And he's like, well, I can't let you do it. I'm like, look, dude, I have no money. I'm not coming for the car. I'm in a bad place. I'm probably going to have to file for bankruptcy. So there's no leverage here, okay? This is just stuff you'll have to throw out. And he goes, well, good thing I'm not coming here for money, all right? And I'm looking at this man, and I said, you ever run into a guy where it's just not that day? Now, this man doesn't know, within his arm reach, I have a loaded Glock with carbine bullets that will do the job right away. All right. He looked at me and he said, all right, man, just give me the keys and, get your stuff. He knew today wasn't the day. He doesn't know how close he came to pretty much getting shot, because the value of my life, there wasn't much value to my life at that moment. So taking his was, whatever. So I gave him the keys. I grabbed the stuff. I walked back in the house. I leaned against the door. I slid down, very dramatically, like in TV, crying and laughing at the same time. And I was like, okay, is that the best you got? That's the best you can do? And I said all this out loud. I said, okay, I don't know how, but I'm going to make it through this. I'm going to make it through this. And I'm going to get back on top. I didn't have a clue how. So, back to mixed martial arts. So I signed up for that. And what's really crazy is everybody that came into my life at that moment, that came in, were Christians. Everyone that was going out were not. So I met Dion Ricardo, through the seminar. And I was real quiet. And those who know me know I'm not quiet, right? I was real quiet for a while. I didn't have a whole heck of a lot to talk about. So Master Dan Ricardo winds up whispering something in my ear, and it was kind of like, what is that, And he said, the ultimate path, or the ultimate power is kindness. It was just whatever, but it got my attention. And then I told him one day, I said, hey, I don't have, and I'm trying to say this verbatim, right? I don't have a lot of good going on in my life, but I'm very savvy. I know how to get things done, and you seem to be a good man, and if I can help you, just please ask, and I'll do it, because I have a lot of time on my hands right now, and I'm going through some bad stuff, and if it can help somebody and make their life a little bit better, then, cool, right? So he said, okay. do you know anything about MySpace, like fan pages or business pages or whatever the heck that was, right? And I said, no, like the coding HTML. I said, no, but I can figure it out. I think like a week later or whatever, Victory Martial Arts had a MySpace fan page because I just pretty much, you know, uh, went to something else, copied the code, and, changed the code around to represent, Victory Martial Arts when it was HTML. Well, I did that, and then over some time I went through the bankruptcy. I didn't have any money anymore to train. And Master Ricardo said, okay, well, there's other ways, So I started doing odd jobs for the academy. And through this time, I kept training and training and training and training because I had nothing but time, right? And I was in a bad place, and I wasn't really letting people kind of know how bad of a place I was, but I just kept training, training, training. And well, years went by. This is like 11 years ago. Master Dion Ricardo was my best man at my wedding. He's been my mentor. He's talked to me for years. We're very, very tight. The bond was forged, in a starting from a bad place, and he's one of the few men that reached into my life when everyone was running out of it. Okay, he reached in to the fire and listened to me complain about my life for hours. Listen to me, me asking him questions of why this, why that. And he gave me his best answer. Whenever he was just a friend, he just listened. Well, the video is why I became a mixed martial artist. I think a lot of young men, this is where I started off, a lot of young men, or women, but I can't speak for women, so I don't know, but a lot of young men join mixed martial arts because they want to see if they got it. They want to see what they're made of. And I get that, right? But that wasn't the season of my life I was in at that point. It wasn't even close. I knew I already had it. I mean, I built a trucking company, I did a lot of stuff. So, it didn't matter what I was going to do. I was going to do it well because I knew I had the grit it was going to take to be successful. I can't say I've been the best martial artist, fundamentally, but I'm probably, one of the better athletes. And my athletic ability carried me a long way because, I just have drive, right? Just a constant drive. And I don't give up. That's just not part of my character. But a lot of young men never really got to explore this about themselves or really prove this to themselves. I mean, mine was the idea of starting a trucking company, starting it and saying, oh crap, like I can't take days off, I can't do this, I can't do that, I have to work harder, I have to figure out these things. So I was forced to have to do it because, I had a gigantic financial investment into this, and, I had a lot of people around me that were rooting for me, and there was no choice. Like, I had to make it happen, and, I was able to know what I was made of. But I think a lot of young men want to know what they're made of, so that's why they go into it, but that wasn't my story. My story was the real core that drove me to become a mixed martial artist was two-part, okay? The first part was my son. Like I said a few times, I had a very serious distrust for my ex, my son's mother. I didn't know who she was going to bring around him. And a question came to me. In my mind, I said, could I defend my child without needing a knife or gun? Honestly, if I had to just put on, just get it on with some guy because maybe he did something, and, right there I just had to do what I had to do. Could I effectively protect my child or protect my best interest, which is my child, right? And the answer was no. It wasn't. It was a tough one to come to because I think we like to think we are tougher than we really are. I don't know if tough is the correct word, which it really is. Do we have the skill set, the knowledge, to do what we need to do and, keep our risk to ourselves, our physical risk to ourselves low, right? A lot of people they don't know and they think they do, and then they get hit in the face a few times, and they're not used to getting hit in the head. And the joke, I think Mike Tyson said, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. That's an absolutely true statement. Let me tell you that. Everyone wants to be a mixed martial artist or boxer till they get punched in the face a few times. Then it's a special breed of person after that. Let me tell you that. That was it. That was the first big part. And there were some days that was 50% of the reason, and then there were days that was 100% of the reason. But I was not ever going to, feel like I was inadequate when it came to protecting my child. And the second part was, I always, I was picked on and I was made to feel less than because I wasn't as big, right? Which is the biggest bunch of nonsense. The saying is there's two sayings I think about, which is, a size of a man's character is not measured by his stature. And that is absolutely true, because some of the most powerful men and most genuine men I've ever met are shorter than I am. And then there's some big guys that are just genuinely great guys, It's not your size, it's just who you are as a person. The other thing, the other saying that I was telling you about is, everything you need to know about a man is how he treats the smaller man. You can be big, but you can fall. And we know that with David and Goliath, or we know that on some of the guys that I dropped that were much bigger than me, okay? Every man can fall. You're just a man. Now, how you approach them is different. If a man's much bigger, you have to respect their size. That's for sure. You don't want to wind up on the ground with a guy much bigger than you, because not only are you dealing with the fact that they might have more muscle mass, therefore being stronger, they're just heavier than you, So you better have the better skill set and be able to move. And pick them apart. Chop them down like a tree. How do you take down a tree? You just chop them. Chop at them. Keep chopping them. Eventually that tree comes down. Well, the result of that, a result of me doing mixed martial arts and what I learned, wound up, it started because it came from a fear of violence and how I would fare in a violent exchange while trying to protect my child. Well, what it left me with was a feeling of peace. I've been actually able to get along with all the men that my son's mom went out with. I mean, a few. I'm not saying like all, but the few, right? I've been able to get along with them. I never had a feeling of threat or anything, because I know what I'm capable of doing. I know, and I'm pretty sure she told them too. Hey, it is what it is, right? No one's gotten out of line with me. Even if they had, I would have been able to be calm and been able to resolve it calm. I think a lot of times when we see conflict between two people, it's fear-driven. I think now, since I have this skill set that I walk around with, it's kind of like a loaded weapon inside of me that only I know I have. It's like carrying a gun at concealed carry, right? So I conceal this ability. I know that I can take this skill set and I can put someone on their back and manipulate their body in ways they never even knew. And they could be much bigger than me. It doesn't matter. I choked out a man 400 pounds before. I sat and sparred in the pocket with a man 6'4", 290 pounds. I did fairly well until I went on the ground. Then it wasn't so good for me anymore. But standing up, actually, yeah. And I armbarred that dude. He couldn't get out. He tapped. So, now, hold on. Sorry, guys. So, get back to what I was saying. So, it made me a more peaceful guy. It made me happier inside. It made me, it made me be able to love others a lot easier, because I wasn't, the fear of physical threat was removed. It instilled a sense of confidence in me. Now, the second part of why I became a martial artist is because, or why I became a mixed martial arts is, even though I was older when I got into mixed martial arts, I still carried this chip on my shoulder that no one was ever going to hurt me again. It was tag football, but it was but I got tackled, right? Because I was small, I wasn't a threat. So I got pushed, I got shoved, I got hit in the head, I got disrespected. Um, it was it wasn't a big deal. I mean, it was. I mean, I kept. Sorry, I was thinking about something else. It was a big deal, um, and I carried that for a long time. And that was never going to happen again. It just wasn't ever going to happen to me again. I was never going to feel like there was nothing I can do. I would act like it was no big deal, but it was. I would just go along because I just didn't want to bring any more attention to myself, and I would laugh it off. And I think that kids would think like it wasn't a big deal. I mean, even into becoming or being an adult, I've had to hear stuff about height or this and that. It just considering the source of someone that would do that, I look at them now like, man, I feel sorry for you, dude. You probably bring a lot of pain onto your life because you don't use your brain. But for a lot of years, that I carried that in my heart, and it really bothered me. So no one was ever gonna make me feel like I couldn't protect myself or I couldn't stand up for myself again. Even though, I mean, I did, but there was always doubt, right? So since becoming a mixed martial artist, there really hasn't been any doubt. There really hasn't been a feeling of vulnerability. I think that's what it is. That's since been removed. So this is the gifts that mixed martial arts have given me. I didn't need for mixed martial arts to show me what I had, what I was made of, in the way of drive or grind. I needed mixed martial arts mixed martial arts told me I was good enough. I was big enough. I was man enough, and I was worth enough. And that's what I gained from mixed martial arts. I think that, and plus the environment that you're in with mixed martial arts is a peaceful environment. I mean, people think that mixed martial arts is violence, and that's not true at all. Violence is what's in the heart, okay? The intent. This is just a skill of warriors, people that just have either the warrior spirit or something that's missing that they need to feel more adequate, right? And within the right gyms, okay, you can get that. You can get that fulfillment that you're good enough. You can fill that void. I think a lot of times we see children act out and become violent. It's easy to label them as mentally ill. And we see this with mass shootings and things like that. I see it a little bit differently. I see this as they've been, not all times, but they've been a victim of mental abuse. And that's by their peers. Maybe they had a hard time learning. They wanted to do better in school, but I mean, because of physiological reasons outside of their control, it was just hard. I mean, I battled this. I've been a successful entrepreneur, actually, because I learned how to use ADHD to my advantage. But let me tell you, when it comes down to having to learn something I don't like, it is a struggle still. And I've gone to a psychiatrist, psychologist. I, take, medication. I've learned all these things about how to hack my mind to get more out of me and to get more productivity, to be more proactive. I've learned different habits, installed different habits. I've learned different mindsets. I've evolved, but it's still hard because it's a physiological thing I can't control. The fact that I'm 5'7" and I'm at the average height of a male, which is 5'9", what can I do? I can't do nothing about it. My son, right? My son, fortunately, is 14 years old and he's almost 5'9". He's never had to be teased about his height or anything like that. And I told him, I said, you're at that age where you and your friends break stones. It's normal, it comes with it. But there's a line. And that line is when someone's ganging up on somebody, don't be part of it. If anything, step in and stop it. The line is if someone is being picked on by something they can't control. Maybe they have like crummy shoes on. Well, maybe they're poor. Maybe they have, smelly clothes. Maybe they, don't have a loving, parents that make sure their clothes are clean for them. Just let me just say, my son sometimes smells because now I'm making him do his own laundry. Sometimes you want to do it. I'm like, hey, it's on you, dude. You're too old now. You have to start learning to care for yourself. But, maybe someone's short. They didn't ask to be short. And what the hell's the problem with being short? Who cares? Or maybe, they got funny eyes or something. They never asked for that. They don't need to be, it doesn't need to be pointed out to them. Believe me, they know. They know. I told them, by making fun of them, all you're trying to do is, it shows your own insecurities because you're just trying to please the other group at the expense of one. And that's the part that sucks. We do this in society, and this probably will always be. And a lot of parents aren't really telling their children, look, like, you don't do this because, of whatever, right? Matter of fact, I had to tell a friend of mine years back, I'm like, look, you can mess with me about my hair because I chose to get that haircut. You can even mess with me if my teeth were yellow because I chose not to brush them. But I don't want to hear about my height because I didn't choose that. You can make fun of me about my shirts, my hats. There's plenty of material. Have at it, man, and I'll dish it right back. But if I got to hear about, my height, I got to hear about birthmark I have on my neck that looks like a hickey. Oh, God, I had to hear that. I still hear it. I'm 40 years old. Like, look at people like, are you serious? Are you that stupid? But saying all these things, getting back to the core point of this video is mixed martial arts removed that little thing you don't really realize you have, and that's a feeling of inadequacy, because at the end of the day, deep down inside, I'm pretty sure I can kick your ass. Alright guys, that's my story about how I became a mixed martial artist. If you are someone that's been abused, I feel for you, man, or young lady. Get in a mixed martial arts gym, a good one. Get in there and just start training. And whatever anyone tells you, it's a lie. I don't know of too many people that failed typing class twice for 25 words per minute. This guy did. I own internet businesses. Anything can be done. Just work hard. Just because you're too short, you're shorter, and that doesn't mean you're less than. I had a child with a beautiful woman. I mean, we get along really good now. It just took years and maturity. I've traveled. I've made a lot of money. I've had cool cars. I mean, I was in my mid-20s driving a $85,000 BMW. I got a Hellcat sitting in my garage right now. If you don't feel like you're smart enough, I understand. I've gone through that too. But what's kind of funny is what society says is smart, and the outcome at the end of the day, which we find out which is really smart, unless you're trying to be a doctor or something like that or whatever, that academics is for people who are pursuing a career. You might very well might have a special gift. For someone that didn't do well in school, I took an IQ test and I found out that I have a very particularly high part of your IQ. So you have 6 intelligences, which is logic. And I scored very, very high on that. And that was, nature and nurture. But that was something I developed probably as a result of ADHD. I just had to figure everything out. I didn't read instructions because, structure is hard for me. I just had to figure out how to put those toys together. I took things apart and put them back together. I made things. My mind is always turned. And I wound up developing an interesting part of the way my brain works, which has allowed me to be an entrepreneur. So maybe you won't be a doctor. So what? You know, go and be something else. But if you really want to be a doctor, you can do it. Maybe it just takes a little longer. Who cares? Get into a mixed martial arts gym. Go there. It helped me. It helped a lot of people. I can't speak for other people, but I know their story. It helped them. And, well, that's how I became a mixed martial artist. Okay, bye guys.